Okay, perfect. Hey, thanks everyone for joining us. I know this was one of the most important days of the year for some people, 31st of October, Halloween. There's a lot of places you should probably be, but I think this is going to be a really unique opportunity for everyone. And thank you for everyone who is participating in the chat, participating as an attendant of the ceremony, of the not the ceremony, of the event. And I want to kick off right here with a quick introduction of everyone. We've got approximately 9 people, including myself, on the screen. And I see Emily on the top left. So if you could just real quick tell us who you are, what you do, where you're from, that'll be a good place to start for today. So Emily, if you want to kick us off.
So I'm Major Emily Cersei. I've been with Marforcyber for 2 years now with the JTF Aries portion of it. And I'm from Quebec, Canada.
Thank you, Emily. I know you're probably the one exception to the rule here, but you're a part of the team, and I thought it'd be really great to have you. So thank you for joining us today. All right, Sharon, I see you next in my Hollywood Squares. If you want to go. I'm having issues hearing Sharon. Can anyone else hear her? Still nothing. Here, we'll come back to you, Sharon. All right, Eddie, I see you next. Quick intro, please.
Yeah, so good morning, everybody. My name is Captain Eddie Harden. I'm a cyberspace operations officer at Marforcyber. I joined Marforcyber about 2 years ago. I started off on the planning side in the G5 where we do more so operational and strategic level planning. And I transitioned to the offensive side. I'm originally from Tuskegee, Alabama.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Okay, Lieutenant Colonel Neville, sir, I see you next in my Hollywood Squares.
Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Jamel Neville, part of Marforce. Thanks for having me today. Looking forward to it. Quick background, /cyber community for the 18 years thereabouts. So started off with communications and recently joined the Marforcyber team back in 2019, where I started off as the G33 current operations branch head and transitioned over to the Cyber National Mission Forces this past summer. So again, looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, Master Sergeant Smith, I see you. Go ahead.
Well, sir, Master Sergeant Smith, Ligarian Smith. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. Go Dogs, Bulldogs, that is. I am been in IT since, well, pretty much started at radio and kind of transitioned and evolved to cybersecurity over the 17 plus years I got. Right now I am the G7 training chief, so in charge of all things to help facilitate training for civilians and the military, OCO and DCO, or excuse me, offensive cyber and defensive cyber related training and exercises. Look forward to speaking with everyone.
Thank you so much, Top. Joel, quick intro, please.
Good morning. My name is Captain Joel Chapman. I've been with Marforcyber and US Cybercom now for about 2 years. And then I've also been working on cyber and information technology on the both civilian and military side for about the last 10 years or so. I've worked on all levels from radio to IT to data, working with servers and routers on the Marine Corps side and enterprise operations on the civilian side. And just recently, I've been transitioning more from a future operations and planning perspective to a current operations and offensive perspective. So seeing a little bit of most of what we have right now and still trying to dig in and keep moving forward.
Thanks, Joel. Gary, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Captain Gary Hufford. I've been with Marforcyber for about 2 years now, one of the mission commanders supporting offensive cyberspace operations. Intelligence officer by trade, but I've been here doing some phenomenal work with some phenomenal people here. So it's been truly an amazing opportunity for me.
Thanks so much, Gary. And then wrapping up with Kit.
Hey everyone, this is Captain Kitwyn. I'm a communications officer. I've been with Marforce Cyber just within a year now. focusing on current operations. Originally from San Jose, California, but looking forward to participating in this panel.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Sharon, let's try again. Let's see if we can get the audio going.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm Captain Sharon Rollins, also a cyber officer with Marforcyber. I've been with Marforcyber for about 2 years, currently working with Lieutenant Colonel Neville on Combat Mission Team 1, and before that was a communications officer. I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Thanks, Sharon. I see we've got a few people additionally on the chat. Here we go, Taylor, if you want to do a quick intro.
Sure. Hey, I'm Captain Taylor Paul. I am a communications officer, haven't jumped ship to the cyber MOS field yet. Holding on, man. So I do phones and computers, but right now I'm working to I'm the technical lead for the big data platform from Marforcyber. We're working to collect network logs, security appliance logs, network information from across the Mixen, store it in AWS GovCloud, so we can have a data lake to build algorithms to detect advanced persistent threats, see if the enemy's in our network, that kind of information. So glad to be here.
Thanks so much, Taylor. And just as a quick reminder, I know that there's a lot of jargon and buzzwords that we're used to in the Marine Corps. So as much as possible, try to spell out all your acronyms and explain all those really technical terms that we're just so used to, and all those really important things to us that might not make immediate sense to an average person. So, but really good start. And then Captain Santos, I know you've already done a quick intro, but if you want to once again just tell us what you do at Marforcyber.
Hey, Captain Santos here again, working with Minority Innovation Weekend. So glad to share the Marine Corps side as well. I was a watch officer at Marforcyber, again, making sure that the network was secure, working actually for Lieutenant Colonel Neville. So pretty awesome to see him here as well again. And Taylor Paul was actually my company commander when I was at the Naval Academy. So we have a little reunion going on here. So shout out to him as well. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much, Levante. So I want to first start off by quickly going over what Marforcyber as a command does. And our mission is really beyond just being the service cyber component to cybercom. Every service has a component, Air Force cyber, Marine Corps cyber, Army cyber. Beyond that, we're also trying to plan, coordinate, integrate, synchronize, and direct Marine Corps full spectrum cyberspace operations. So that includes what we call DODIN, the Department of Defense Information Network Operations, DCO, Defensive Cyberspace Operations, and then planning and executing offensive cyberspace operations. So as part of that construct, there's also a command called Joint Task Force Ares. Really interesting command. Some of you have been a part of it. Some of you are a part of it right now. And what they are doing is they're countering violent extremist organizations, which you might know as terrorists, countering them online in cyberspace and going after the adversary wherever they may be. So with that being said, I want to first start talking about what it means to defend a network. And for that one, I think it'd be really great if Colonel Neville, you could kick us off here talking about what it means to you to defend the network.
Well, thanks for that question. And just as I mentioned before, prior to the current assignment, I was working with as a G33, and obviously in that capacity, largely a defense focused. So defending the Marine Corps Enterprise Network. So a lot of endpoints that are out there, and a pretty big task. We'll rewind the clock just a few years back to my time at Headquarters Marine Corps C4, when we were working to unify the Marine Corps Enterprise Network. At that time, there were multiple commands that were involved. Installations Command, Systems Command, C4 Department, Marforcyber, Combat Development Integration. So a lot of hands were involved as far as the day-to-day experience and in the defense of the Marine Corps Enterprise Network. So what does that mean? Multiple policies, multiple priorities, challenging. But fast forward to this year, where the Marine Corps Enterprise Network came under one unified command, and that being Marforcyber, made things a lot easier from the standpoint of getting our arms around those thousands and thousands of endpoints and securing it like it needs to be secured. As I mentioned, a lot of vulnerabilities that are out there, a lot of adversaries that want our data, that want our, to get into our network and do bad things. So it requires all the folks you see around this Hollywood Square here and those out in VTC or what we're calling Loomland or whatever we're on this platform. It requires a whole force to really get our arms around it and defend all the attack surfaces that are out there. So patching, scanning, ensuring that the patches and scans are not only conducted but then enforced. Is a 24/7 job, arguably a lot harder than maybe the offensive side. A lot more forces and resources, of course. So this is my general take. I've been fortunate to be a part of several operations in the past year, I would say, to thwart the adversary. And but wow, phenomenal work, phenomenal time, learned a whole lot, still learning. But I know that working with Joel Chapman, we were working to improve our infrastructure when Joel was over in the 35. So Joel, if you have any particular insights with regard to maybe what we did at the unclass level on the mix-in to kind of further expound the point as far as defense in depth in our defense posture.
Well, yes, sir. As you pointed out, some of the most important things that we were looking at is the things that are really available to anyone working within the IT sector. And that's going to be maintaining your patches, making sure your version control is up to date, making sure that you're running a unified network so that you don't have isolated nodes that you don't have visibility on, or that the SOC or your NOC or whatever organizations you have that are trying to maintain that security, they can't see what's going on that those parts of the network. To be able to execute those kind of things, a lot of what we were working on over in the G35, the future planning cell, was, like you said, trying to, just bring all of these different aspects of the network together, make sure they were all under one roof. And this had really two components. The technology component is the one that most people think of first through some of our different enterprise initiatives to modernize our architecture, bring more control and visibility into our architecture. But secondarily to that was also making sure that the people, the squishy human factor, if you will, those were also unified, and those also had the right skills, training, and experiences to enable them to be successful in defending that network. So another initiative that we were working on was trying to stand up new organizations within the Marine Corps that reported directly to Marforcyber, who held the primary responsibility for defending all of those various aspects of the network that we were also unifying on a technological perspective. So bringing in both the people and the things under one umbrella and making sure that they all had the right tools and the right knowledge and the right equipment went into enabling that overall security posture across the board, and radically improved or helped to improve the Marine Corps' network and our ability to defend it.
Andre, I think you're muted.
Hey, Joel, you hit on some really great points there, and I want to go back to where you said that the people and the things, because I know that's kind of the motto, at least for General Glavy, for Marforcyber, people, ideas, and things in that order. And I think it's just so important, no matter whether it's in cyber or really any type of business industry that you're in, the importance of prioritizing your people and prioritizing empowering them, giving them all the authorities that they might need, and really the opportunity and the education to succeed is just so important. And then the other thing that you really hit there is the scope of the Marine Corps. If it were a company, it would probably be a huge company, but for the military, we're kind of small. 200,000 people is relatively small compared to the Army and the Navy. But we're really in a unique place in Marforcyber. So with that said, I want to move on to the second question on a three-letter acronym, CIA, which is not necessarily going to be the Central Intelligence Agency. It has a different meaning in cyber, so confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So what does that mean for the Marine Corps? Who wants to go next on this one? If not, I'll start picking on people.
Sure.
I know. Go ahead.
Can you guys hear me? All right. So You know, I think this kind of ties into the first question. CIA is important, and any IT professional is going to learn about this CIA triad as they start to learn about cybersecurity. And it really boils down to, like Major Alejandro said, the confidentiality, who needs to know, the integrity, has our data been manipulated in any way, and what are we doing to ensure the right people have access to the data, and the availability. You know, do we have backups of our data? But I think, and this kind of goes back to the first question, you know, today there are so many cyber threats, and we're seeing data that shows, especially during this time of COVID, how cyber attacks have increased in the federal market, private, public, the military is seeing an increase. And so I think that we really need to, you know, do everything that we just talked about as far as patching and updating our systems, and, you know, following the CIA triad and using that as kind of a model to you know, run our network. But we've got to, I think, take it up a notch. We've got to, I think, test our networks internally. And I think we owe it to, you know, our reputation in the business owes it to their customers who trust their business to test and ensure that their networks are as hard as they think they are. And so that's kind of the next step I would like to see the Marine Corps take, is looking internally at our networks, at our platforms that the Fleet Marine Force is using. How can we test these networks and identify vulnerabilities before somebody else does? Because we're constantly seeing cyber attacks increase over the months and over the years, and it's not going to go away. So that's where I think panels like this are so great, because it takes a really creative mindset and a diverse mindset to figure out new ways to defend our network, and also you know, look at our adversaries and understand their tactics and techniques.
You're muted.
Thank you. Hey, that's a great point. We're in this era of great power competition, and it's really, really important that we're looking and seeing what our adversaries are doing, and seeing also just what our friends are doing, and the best practices that we can learn from them. And so I want to move on to the next question about this field, the 1702 and the 17XX community, which for the Marine Corps is the cyberspace community. It's a pretty new field. And so for those of you on the call here who are 17s, what made you want to join this fight and say, yeah, I want to be part of this new effort? Levante, I think this might be a good one for you.
Okay. Yeah. So I originally came from the tanker community, so a little bit different, right? And when you go out, it's an exercise called ITX, Integrated Training Exercise. You go out to 29 Palms. The desert is your playground, and you're shooting tire stacks. And you have this guy in the back of a Humvee who is telling you to keep shooting this tire stack because you did not kill it. And me and my tank crew obviously said, you're crazy. This thing is dead. The thing that is in cyber, you're not shooting at tire stacks, and tire stacks are not shooting at you. Every single day, there is an adversary that is trying to get into your network. So just read the news, right? And that is what every day I go to work, I know that what we're doing, everything matters in the Marine Corps, but also here, you don't really have to convince your Marines why it's important. You're not telling them, hey, just be ready for the fight. Just be ready for the fight, because that's what I was doing before. Today, that conversation doesn't take place, because the fight in cyberspace is 365, 24/7, and the people who are on this panel know that more than anyone. And it is just something that we have to be ready for, and we continue to make sure we have the best and brightest as much as possible. And that, again, we're having these conversations. Sharon hit on it. It takes innovation. It takes creativeness. It takes creativity. It takes us to think outside of the box, because I'll tell you right now, the adversary is not this static creature that sits on the couch and doesn't do anything. They are sophisticated. They're smart, and they're going to make us earn our paycheck every single day.
Absolutely.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a step further from the standpoint of far as thinking beyond outside the box. I'm going to say one of the motivating factors for me, at least, was being able to think beyond the pipes. What do I mean by that? So instead of the infrastructure focus, my former job, I didn't mention this, is I was a commo, an 0602 communications officer. So communications officer, again, exciting field, largely responsible for installing, operating, maintaining infrastructure. The exciting thing about community or cyber security and cyberspace operations is it gives you an opportunity to think beyond the pipes. Communicate on the comm side, to enable command and control. But you have to think beyond the pipes in a way as far as what the adversary is doing, as we're discussing. Break. We also get a chance to be at the table when it comes to operational planning. So right there with our 3's operations officers and their staffs, influencing, driving, planning, and directing operations. So in some cases, applying the joint targeting methodology to what we do. So you have an operational side and you have a very technical side kind of combined together. And what's exciting for me is being able to basically drive operations at a strategic level. So you cannot do that as, in communications, but again, cyber is the pipes.
Absolutely. So it's definitely a different change of mentality if you're coming from the IT community. So it's really much more, touching the enemy and being a little bit more of a war fighter. Not saying that IT guys aren't being war fighters in the Marine Corps, but really great perspective there, sir. And so really getting back to that same topic of being physical and trying to really be prepared for an adversary, I want to ask about what is the difference between this and other Marine Corps jobs where usually there's a really high standard for physical fitness? Is that applicable to this field, or are there different standards in the Marine Corps for submarines? Top, I think this would be a really good one for you.
So, if I understand the question right, is there a difference between us being cyber Marines and other Marines in the Marine Corps?
That and the physical standards themselves, are there different standards? Is different bar for Marines that are cyber Marines, since you're really behind a computer the majority of the time? Is there any difference?
Definitely no. As Marines, we are all required to maintain the standard. The standard is first class PFTs, CFTs. No, the standard is maintain your fitness, right? Our commandant requires us to PT, all Marines to PT at least 5 hours a week. Some of us go above and beyond. And I think that the old fad of nerds being skinny with glasses and weaklings is behind us, because we got some incredible Marines that are fitness studs and studettes that have to maintain that standard, and they do it. They get from behind in fact, it's more healthy to get from behind the keyboard and ensure that we do physical activity. I myself do a lot of, personally, I do a lot of bodybuilding to maintain my fitness, but also it helps me with dealing with stress and to keep that fire, that hunger, to be not only a physical Marine, but a smart tactical Marine in terms of how we apply cyber defending and offensive cyber operations. So just to be more succinct with that question is, we are required to maintain our fitness behind the keyboard, whether you're a Marine shooting and communicating on the battlefield at a tactical level, or you're behind the computer shooting cyber bullets downrange at a more strategic level. You still have to maintain that fit.
Thanks for that answer. So I think it's really important that we try to dispel some of the rumors or some of the myths out there about the pink hair or the different standard. And there's certainly value to a lot of people who are maybe not even capable physically due to other reasons to meet the standard. And that's why we do have civilians that are part of Marforcyber, and they're really important too. But then when it comes to the people wearing uniform, there's that standard that remains regardless. And so I wanted to move to another question about this domain is overall just a very challenging domain. So what are some of the biggest challenges entering this domain? I want to pass this to Captain Harden.
So biggest challenge in entering this domain is it probably applies not only to Marines or military personnel, but I think anyone in the IT cyber community, and that is, are you where are you as far in with IT? And I think, you know, most of us when we grow up, you know, we don't grow up coding computers, we don't grow up writing software programs, we don't grow up knowing what routers, switches, endpoints, midpoints, we don't know what they do. We just, you know, we're more so consumers of the information and users of the devices, of said devices. So, and that right there, technically, that puts us behind our adversaries, who may have spent decades learning how to use these devices, learning how to attack us and our infrastructure. So I think that's one of the hardest things actually entering this domain is learning the rudimentary stuff, things for this environment. And I think that right there is probably one of the biggest challenges. And I think number two is once you go beyond that basic understanding, you're talking about learning how does that apply across the Department of Defense, both nationally and internationally. So that is a very that makes it very difficult. So it does keeps us on our toes all of the time. You have to be abreast of the new emerging technologies at all times, or else your adversaries will outcycle you as far as operational and thinking and innovation.
So what I'm hearing is that learning and education is supremely important in this field. And so my next question, and Emily, I'm going to pass this one your way, is if someone doesn't have a STEM degree, are they out of luck?
Thank you for the question. I don't think so. I think I've been able to participate a lot despite my visual arts degree, or at least that's my. So no, you can learn quite fast as long as you put your heart to it. That's it. Anyone else have a comment?
Yeah, open that up to anyone else.
Actually,
So I'll use myself as a case example for the STEM degree part. I graduated from University of Alabama, and I didn't have my undergraduate degree was not STEM focused. It was somewhat STEM focused, but not. However, my master's is. But I entered just like Lieutenant Colonel Neville. I was a communications officer when I joined to the officer side. I was a communications officer. I did not have a STEM degree. So there was a learning curve there, going through the communications officer course, learning how to, learning about technology, learning about routing, switching, all those things, learning about that, learning how networks work. If you have no experience, yes, going back to the previous question, there is a learning curve there. However, that's what the entry-level training is for. You get taught these things, taught the basic level thing, and then you get placed units. Wherever you're placed, you're always able to learn more. You're always able to attend courses. You're always able to, on your own research, you're always able to do simple things like, maybe on Nano, for example, have VM suites that we use at home and we set up to play around on networks. So it's little things like that I think that will help that. But I don't think having a STEM degree it will hurt you that much, considering all of the opportunities to actually learn going forward.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here real quick, and I would say bottom on the front, there are non-technical degrees that will help out in cybersecurity. I frequently augment, my current cyber and IT skill sets and experience with my previous informal training in business administration and some fine arts to solve problems in the information environment in the cyber domain. And I think a mixed blend of critical thinking, technical proficiency, and creativity are essential for organizations in information age. On the defense front, I read an article recently, and an author says cybersecurity is not a technical challenge, it's a human one. Future cyber attacks will target and abuse humans' trust first.
Yeah, the social engineering aspect is really important. Legarian, did you have something you want to add?
I was just gonna take it from a fundamental level, being a cyber patriot mentor for some of the high school students and having been at the schoolhouse teaching 17, 18, 19-year-olds just fresh in the Marine Corps. What I could say from all my experiences, they don't obviously have a STEM degree, but the difference between Marine or even these high school students that I'm teaching, learning what we know right now is the tenacity, the effort, and opportunity that we give them, and wholeheartedly. I got hopefully a future Marine officer that I did a recommendation for the Naval Academy. He is leaps and bounds beyond people at his high school right now. Leaps and bounds. The kid can program a Cisco router, switch, and all these other things for his part of the Cyber Patriot team. But his experience showed me that if you want it bad enough, you can learn anything in this world. You're only limited by your mind and the opportunities that you receive. But
that's actually
short right there.
Right on point of the next question I was going to ask. And so you've kind of already answered it, but we'll get another perspective. What would you tell someone thinking about joining the Marine Corps as a cyberspace officer out of high school or even later?
I'll hop on this one if I may, since I joined the Marine Corps to not do computers originally. And you can see how that's worked out for me. But the thing about the information technology field overall is that there's always something new to learn. There's always something that you don't know. And it doesn't matter how long you've been in this domain or how long you've been in this sector and what past experiences you have. There's always going to be something else. So maintaining that humility and that intellectual curiosity is what's really going to set someone apart from their peers, or even from those who have, been there before them but haven't maintained their edge. I think Captain Harden mentioned there's a lot of formal training opportunities out there to try and especially help instill someone with the fundamentals if they don't have a background in IT already. But there's also a lot of other opportunities out there, free on the internet. There's books, there's articles you can read, there's YouTube channels. You can even just spin up a computer or VM on your laptop and start tinkering with it. So really the most important thing, it comes down to that tenacity, I think, as Colonel Neville said, and that intellectual curiosity and the humility to keep pushing forward and to keep trying to find something you don't know, find something you don't understand, and pursue that until you do. And unfortunately, that's just going to show you 5 more things that you don't understand. As you gain your knowledge, really, you're just gaining visibility into all the other future opportunities for growth, if you will. So I think that would be the number one thing I would try and pass on to someone trying to come into the cyber domain or the Marine Corps cyber is, always try and figure out what don't I know today that I'm going to know this evening.
The insatiable curiosity can be so important. And so I wanted to ask one more question here before we'll jump into the Q&A session. I see some questions are popping in the chat. My question is, what training can you talk about that's been really impactful to your experience in cybersecurity? Gary, I know that this is not your full-time, MOS, but I think coming in from a different perspective, I think you might have some unique insight to that question.
Happy to take that one, sir. So yes, when you come into this field, there is a huge knowledge gap, and fortunately, being surrounded by the operators and people whose this has been their life, they're very happy to impart that knowledge to you quickly, and over time you will become familiar with the language and how all these systems fit together. But from an outside perspective, when you bring in like thought and that ability to put bits and pieces of a target system together and try to understand motive, intent, and capability, you're able to not just see the physical layout of a network and the physical capability of a network, but rather you're able to pair that with what you believe the enemy is actually capable of doing. That then informs your steps as you walk through to develop a COA for breaking into that network on the offensive side, getting what you want, accomplishing your missions, and getting back out without being found or with being discovered, depending upon what your intent is. But again, there is a steep learning curve for someone such as myself and others that come in and have not been exposed to this community. But the funding, the training pipeline, it's there, and it does bring you up to speed in this community to where you might not be the expert that has the masters in cybersecurity, but you're at least familiar enough that you can function in whatever capacity that you've been placed in. I hope that helped clarify where you're going with it, sir.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think you really brought out that there's a cognitive sense to when you're really going after the adversary offensively or even defensively. You really have to think about what are they thinking when they're doing this, and what's the thought process. Kit, I wanted to open up to you. I know you just joined the video chat. Any of the topics that we've hit so far that you want to chime in on?
Yeah, I'd love to add on to what Captain Hufford said and some of the questions that we answered earlier. There's a lot of concerns about whether you had a STEM degree, what types of training opportunities, what kind of background you need to actually participate in this field. But once you join the Marine Corps, what we bring to the fight is this tactical mindset. And once you get in, you can apply those principles and that background, that mindset that the Marine Corps identifies, and apply that to this cyber realm that's very technical, agreed. But that's what we fight and have those types of strategic impacts.
Add on the colleague's point there, we're maneuver warfare specialists, if you will, in this domain. So the same principles, we create storyboards, ops terms and graphics in our business on both the offensive and defensive side. But back to Clint's point, that same mindset that we learned in boot camp, OCS, EBS, we apply it right here in this domain. Again, a little bit different than far as common IT. And going back to my earlier operational point. That's this.
Hey, great conversation about all of us who are wearing a uniform here. But I know that there's been a question in the chat, and we actually had as one of our prepared questions here about what it takes to be a civilian in the Marine Corps. What do you do in the Marine Corps if you apply in the civilian sector, and what opportunities are there out there? Eddie, I don't know if you want to take this one or anyone else.
Yes. So a little over a year ago, I was working on a project regarding the security and of industrial data system for the Marine Corps. And when I worked on that project, I was fortunate enough to work with a lot of both government agencies and private sector regarding the security of what the government considers critical infrastructure. For example, it classifies 16 total critical infrastructures for the United States, one of which would be the chemical sector, for example, DOD bases and everything like that. So when you're talking about securing, let's say HVAC systems, for example, that is a problem that exists not only in the DOD, and that is a problem that exists also in the civilian sector. So having worked with the many people in the civilian sector, there was a lot of opportunity there to learn, not only for myself to learn about it, but also to just create relationships and working with companies, working with industry, different vendors, for example, to create the newest and latest devices and concepts to secure networks. I think that's one that was an example of how that civilian, that private public sector partnership was explained.
I have a little.
Real quick, Alejandro.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Taylor. I've been talking too much.
Go ahead, Taylor.
Just real quick. Got a chance to work with civilians for the past 8 years. Phenomenal community, essential. That's both contractors and government civilians. The beauty as far as the civilian corps is the continuity that they bring to the table. So when I was at headquarters Marine Corps C4, here at Marforcyber, really it's that civilian workforce that include my current deputy that have been phenomenal as far as the intellectual capital and years of experience that they bring to the table. You know, they're an organization, because when we're long gone, our orders are up 3 or 4 years. They're the ones who are there. So all those great plans and policies and strategies that we develop, they carry those things on. Or, you know, they're the bridge between the new guy and the new guy or gal. So point one. And point two, from an industry perspective, the contractors, you know, the insights and knowledge they bring to bear are phenomenal, because again, that's what they're trained to do. They're here to augment, you know, our force with their insights. So just want to throw that out there. Civilians love them, and I think, you know, obviously they make up more than us in uniform. Over to you, Taylor. Sorry.
No, that's good, sir. No, for sure. Just on big data platform, the project I'm working on, obviously extremely technical. To touch on the education piece, like the Marine Corps is starting to value education, because we have systems like big data platform and others that need to be built. And Marines need to have time to think about the relevant problems, like data science problems. The whole part of what I'm trying to do is gather enough data to build an algorithm that can automate enemy detection, that kind of thing, right? So we're valuing education, but we realize the Marines don't have it on our own. So my team's really made of civilians. I have a systems engineer who's, you know, he's got like 30 years of experience. He's from Northrop Grumman. He's on my team. I have a data scientist. She's a civilian too. She's on the team because we're realizing we're trying to like tap into her expertise. We don't really have data scientists in the Marine Corps. We're trying to figure that out. We have people, I like to say I'm an aspiring data scientist. I definitely, you know, you haven't arrived. You need grad school level work or experience to do that. So we tap into the civilians. And the interesting thing, I have an acquisitions manager for contracting. I'm the only uniformed representative on my team for big data platform that's working it day in and day out. But you get a certain level of it's a beautiful relationship. The civilians are excited because you have operational knowledge. You've worked with the Marines. They're like eager to support you, so they respect that and they like really value your opinion. But you're technically inadequate, and you need their help. And you're like casting a vision that they're building with you. And I think it's a really cool relationship at Marforcyber. I think it's a great place to work as a civilian, and we value that. So thanks for listening on that one.
Hey, that's a great answer, Taylor. Before we go forward, I just want to open up questions in the chat. If there's anyone who wants to drop a question, anything that we haven't talked about yet, we'll feel free to see if we can get your response here as part of the panel. But while we're waiting for additional questions, this is Minority Innovation Weekend. And so I think I want to address one of the questions about being a minority in this field. And when the room isn't diverse, how do you handle being one of one in a room or being part of a minority population? I think there's a lot of people on this room right now that could answer that. But Emily, I think you're probably the most minority at any time while you're at Marforcyber, being the one Canadian officer that we have. You're kind of always in a unique perspective. So I'd like to start off with your perspective on that.
Thank you. It's great because people help you. I didn't see myself as a minority, even though I was the one of one for 2 years. We now have a second one, by the way. But sometimes with my very, very different perspective, for example, when the Marines keep saying they're small, well, their entire Marine Corps is larger than the Canadian Armed Forces as a whole. So you guys are big. So it's different perspective that we bring to the table, and I think it was mostly appreciated in all my time at Marforcyber.
Awesome. I want to open that up to the rest of the group if there's anyone else that wants to answer their perspective.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So I agree with everything Emily just said. And I think that words like diversity and innovation don't just become talking points. I hope that we don't allow that to happen, because it really is critical, I think, to our success in the Marine Corps, but our success within cyber as a whole. And there's data that shows organizations that prioritize diversity and inclusion, they're more successful, their revenue. And I think that we'll be more successful in the cyber domain within the Marine Corps the more that we think about how to be more diverse and attack these hard problems, whether it's on the defensive side or the offensive side, by bringing perspectives. I'll just share that there's this company that I'm working with in a fellowship right now. They're called SYNAC, and they're a pen testing organization that's really successful. And the reason why they're so is because they have what's called their SYNAC Red Team, which is their team of pen testers. But they're not just a group of pen testers in, San Francisco, California. They're from all over the world. So as a client, as an organization, let's say the IRS, and you want to be pen tested, you have these researchers or these pen testers that are looking at your system, the UK, from Minnesota, from Iran, and they're vetted ethical hackers, but they're so diverse. This team is so diverse that they're able to find a lot of vulnerabilities. So I think that, it's going to make us better the more diverse we are and the more creative solutions we come up with. But it definitely is a challenge. And I think it was Captain Harden that brought this up earlier as far as, how some people might feel like they don't fit in within cyber, or they're not qualified to be within cyber. There's this psychological pattern, you guys have probably heard of it, it's called the imposter. And I was so glad that one of the Marines on our team actually sent out an email within our ops section, and he told the Marines about this imposter syndrome idea. And it's this feeling that, you're always doubting yourself and you're not good enough. And I think within the cyber community, people can fall into that category because you're always surrounded by so many smart people. So I think just recognizing, that whether you have junior IT professionals or, junior Marines, they could easily feel that way. So just being aware of that and including, more people into the conversation is something we can, do better at.
Yeah, and so that really brings back to some of the basic principles of Marine Corps leadership, and that's knowing your people and looking out for their welfare, seeking out self-improvement as well as trying to improve your team. So that's really where the Marine Corps tries to be unique and applying these principles, whether it be in cyber, infantry, tanks, whatever, they're all going to apply. And that's why it's so important that we go back to our roots in some instances. So I want to hit one last question and then just parting shots, and it's kind of almost overlapping. We've talked a lot about resources. Are there any really great recommendations on whether it be books, websites, podcasts? What are your go-to resources? Hopefully we can get a good list coming out of our 9 people on this panel that really help you improve in cyberspace, cybersecurity. Open mic.
Cersei, I'm going to give her a shout out. So she wrote an article called Shooting Cyber Bullets. Great article. Why is it great? Because it captures everything we talked about over the past hour here. So it's part of the Marine Corps Gazette in 2020. Get a hold of that. A couple quick books just off the top. She actually references it inside her article, Countdown to Zero Day by Zetter, from the standpoint of offense and defense, if you're getting into this realm. Another great one from a historical standpoint, Dark Territory by Fred Kaplan, Quick Weapon by Sanger, and lastly, Like War by Singer. I'll chat them all in there from the standpoint of the for the book list, but from the standpoint of getting into this community, those are recommendations. And then also, last one, Team of Teams. This is a team sport, okay? And we talked a lot of tech over the past hour. It's about teamwork. I can be the smartest guy in the room, but reality is the smartest guy or gal in the room is the room.
Hey, those are great recommendations. I want to pile in on supporting Emily's article. I got an early preview of that when she was drafting it here a few months ago, and I learned so much as a non-cyber person. That I'm a tech person, but I'm not a cyber or an IT person, and it really will kind of open up and explain all the terms and all the concepts in a really digestible way. So great resource. Top, I think you have something you want to add there.
Yeah, I'll say that I'm not a book kind of guy. I don't really like reading, never have. So I'm an interpersonable. I learn from people, interaction. What they tell me, it kind of all sits in my head, and I can recall it very easily. That said, my greatest resources as of late has been Twitter and LinkedIn. There is a ton of free resources, articles, people that'll chat you and answer your questions. I mean, like I can go through a gamut of examples, but what I find most the best way for me to learn is by interacting with people and them teaching me hands-on. And I've been able to get that through LinkedIn. I just actually read an article yesterday that kind of teaches you about the different tracks to go through to pen testing. Which could be help desk, which could be system admins and other things. So I could drop that in the chat. And also Twitter, where you'll find 0 days dropped on Twitter, and you might want to go try it out. Or there's also web hackers. There's also it's just a gambit of people on Twitter. If you follow the right people, your feed will come up with nothing but good nuggets of information from these companies and geniuses out there, and they're willing and ready to share. They want people in this industry, diverse backgrounds, all kinds, up, down, old, young. They want them all in here because we need more people. So that's my 2 cents on resources.
And those are great resources that really try to keep you relevant at the speed of cyber, which is just so fast. And I want to put a shameless plug there for the Marforcyber Twitter and the Marforcyber LinkedIn. We're always trying to push some of the great messages on all the opportunities this command has for everyone. And with that, I just want to open it up for one last resource, and then we'll close out. Anyone else? Okay, well, with that being said, it's been a great session so far. This hour has flown by. So many great people with great ideas dialed in for this. And we're still going to be available on the sidebar here on the chat room. But I think there's something else scheduled for the rest of the day. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Levante, and you can tell us what's going on for the rest of the day.
Wow, that was absolutely phenomenal. Major Alejandro, thank you so much for moderating this. To everyone else on here, thank you so much for being on. We have what I would consider one of the senior cyberspace officers and mentors in here, Lieutenant Colonel Neville. Thank you for being on here, and this was just phenomenal. Please interact with any of the Marines if they're still on. Ask them questions. As you can see, they're absolutely passionate about this space and ready and willing to talk. So next we have about a 14-minute transition, and we'll have Dr. Dane Brown. He'll be doing a hacker skills workshop. So if you've never done a capture the flag, or you've always wanted to know what goes into that, how do I get into starting to do a capture the flag, this is the event for you. You don't want to miss it. That's all I have. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Levante.